From the kitchen of the cabin, a look at the games that made us who we are in Ben and Steve's Advent Calendar.
Here we are on December the for today's edition of. Oh man,
It's the 14th of December, Steve. Crikey, get it right.
I was actually I was in the bathroom for a moment. Now I'm back in the kitchen, and there's my old-fashioned kitchen calendar, and I see that it's December 14th, and we're here for the Ben and Steve Advent Calendar of Board Games, episode 13 or so.
You're great at this. What does the calendar say today?
It says December 13th.
But it's the 14th. Why does it say December the 13th?
Wait a minute. Wait. I forgot to tear the page away. You know, we're time zone displaced. I'm doing this in the morning. You're doing it in the evening.
That's true.
I just woke up. Give me a chance to, sort myself out.
You get your coffee fee in you. Stick a bit of Baileys in it just to wake you up in the morning.
I got to get a coffee. Now, I'm quite excited about what we're going to talk about today, or what you're going to talk about today. Not because I think it's a great game. I do. I think it's probably the most brilliant, and I don't want to overuse the word definitive, but I'm going to use it in this case.
Of its genre.
Yes, exactly. But I've only played it a few times. I think you've probably played it a lot more than me, and you're going to explain to me why I think it's brilliant. Because my encounter with it is just when you encounter a film or some other work of art, or you read a book and you know that there's something there. You know that it's genius and it just connects with you, 2 amino acids making a protein bend. That's my experience of this game, but I don't know quite how to articulate what's so great about it. Why don't you tell us?
So, it's very rare. As you get older, you become more cynical and you become less sort of wooed by certain aspects of life that you'd previously been wooed by.
I mean, I know I'm definitely becoming less wooed.
And so, if I'd have met a celebrity at 17, I'd have been wide-eyed and blown away, and the thought of it now isn't particularly exciting to me. Yet, at Essen, when I met Don Eskridge, designer of Resistance Avalon, I genuinely had sort of butterflies in my tummy. And the reason is because this game, as much as any, is formative in my gaming life. This is where I thrive. So, what the listeners don't know, although we talk about it, is I play a lot of games that are works of engineering that are mechanically very solid and in-depth. And I play them with kind of, wet-palmed losers like Steve. And so I always end up bloody losing these games. I play these Eurogames and I love them and they're so wonderful, and yet I never come close. And Steve mocks me relentlessly because I'm crap. Well, games like Resistance Avalon.
He's also bad at games.
Whoa! Games like Resistance Avalon is where I get to shine. Now I get to be the one who rules the roost. And why I love this game is because, firstly, again, it was my first social deduction game, apart from Werewolf. And I think it's very cool to rag on Werewolf, but I think Werewolf's wonderful. But Resistance Avalon, the way it took those Werewolf concepts and condensed them into a game that's 45 minutes and then also maintained sort of player involvement all the way through is truly brilliant. And it doesn't get talked about as much anymore, this game, but I think this game, in terms of design, is so clever, so tight, so brilliant, and absolutely social deduction, as it is in modern board gaming, does not exist without the Resistance. Now, the Resistance, the sci-fi version, was the first one. Avalon was the one I bought, and Avalon is the one I prefer, I think. And yeah, as I say, social deduction does not exist without this game.
So what is the difference between the original Resistance and Avalon, other than you being British and having a total massive chubby for all things Arthuriana.
Well, I haven't played Resistance that much, but in Resistance, and I think they've actually imported them into the sci-fi version now, but Avalon has roles. So, you can be a Knight of Arthur, or you can be whatchamafladget, what's his name, Merlin, you can be Mordred. There are certain characters, whereas Resistance didn't have that. You would have sort of like weapons and things, but I think they've put the characters into Resistance, the sci-fi one now, because it's just such a good idea. But yeah, and so that idea, you'd get given the card and you just look at it and go, oh my God, now I'm faced with these challenges. It's just absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And I've had a riot with this game all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely works thematically. I mean, I'm into it too, Anglophile that I am. And certainly, your entire parliamentary system lately seems like a game of Resistance Avalon. So I can see
absolutely.
how that might also connect with your sensibility. So compare this game now to Blood in the Clock Tower, which is all like because you were mentioning Werewolf, where the roles are also, quite diverse. And I think it's like a similar premise. So I don't know, you don't have to say like which one you think is better, but maybe we can like do a little compare and contrast exercise.
So we talk a lot about this, and we talk about the golden age and silver age of games. And I think it kind of boils down to, in many ways, Silver Age games tend to be more complex or complicated because I think the way of demonstrating a good game in the Silver Age is how much you know about previous other games and how much you can cobble various mechanics together that are essentially referential and not original.
Oh, you need to transcribe that and put it straight into the article when you finally write it.
And I think that if you look at Resistance Avalon and you look at Blood on the Clock Tower, it is a classic Golden Age versus Silver Age comparison. Resistance Avalon is completely pared back, and its design intention, is to get as much out of as little as possible, whereas Blood on the Clock Tower is all about over-exuberance, about having as much as possible, not just in its production, which is absurd. I think great, but absurd. Not just in its production, but also in its rules and its massive rules interaction. And so what Blood on the Clock Tower does is emphasize individuality, I think, whereas the Resistance Avalon emphasizes teams. And so there's this idea, and I'm big on this, that you should own game experiences. And I think Blood on the Clock Tower attempts to go for that by giving everyone an independent role that they can act independently. Now, what that means is Blood on the Clock Tower is harder to get on its feet. I think it's very good, but there's something about the sheer purity and cleanliness of the design of Resistance Avalon that really appeals, and why I think it's a classic in the way Blood on the Clock Tower isn't. So
Resistance doesn't have this like storyteller role that stands apart from the other characters, right?
No, and this is also a point. Everyone who's playing is playing, right?
Yeah, but you say that it's this genre of game where you shine, but you also shine as like the storyteller, just as you shine as the DM. But maybe that doesn't necessarily mean you want to do that role all the time. You just
this is good at it, isn't it? So Blood on the Clock Tower. So there's, and again, it's about utility, right? I think Blood on the Clock Tower is an occasion game. When we in the summer sat in the park in the blistering heat, drinking beer and playing Blood on the Clock Tower, and I was the GM for it, was wonderful. It was a really great experience. Even my terrible off-coloured jokes in front of strangers were good. But, you can't do Blood on the Clock Tower all the time. It's a lot of work, and it leaves inevitably one person out. Whereas Resistance, you can get Resistance to the table, play it in 45 minutes, decide to play it again or not, right? And so it's like Werewolf. I love Werewolf, but Werewolf is a 3 times a year game for me. And probably Resistance I don't play as much anymore as I used to, because I really played it a lot. But when I was playing it a lot, this was a 5 times a night game, right?
Wow. I mean, I think it's a great pick for board gaming season, as we call it, and especially the holiday season, because the great thing about board games is they're about togetherness, and the holidays just compound this, and if you're gonna manage to get a group, how many players does it go up to, Resistance?
10.
I don't remember. 10. Wow. I mean, if you can get 10 people together, you're going to have a rollicking good time. I mean, much more so than if you just like, sit down to dinner with your family, progressively get more drunk and rehearse all of the last 3 decades of recriminations and biases and resentments that you have for one another. Skip all that, get your 10 best friends together and play Avalon, right?
And so the thing I love about Avalon, and the reason I think this is perfect as a Christmas game, actually, to play with your family, is that people who aren't gamers have a very sort of rigid conception of what games are. And it's essentially Monopoly, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Avalon is
it a gateway game?
Well, Avalon feels completely different. If you play Avalon with people, I mean, there are certain people who just will always bounce off social deduction games, but most people don't. And I think they'll play it and they'll go, what? This is a board game? I thought it was just rolling dice and being bored. This is absolutely immersive and fascinating and interesting. And you get to lie to your family and it causes laughs and tension and paranoia. Yeah. It is.
You get to experience the novelty of lying to your family.
Exactly. In a positive way for once. This is absolutely a game that bucks the conception of what board games can be. And for that alone, it's worth considering.
So last question then. Do you as a royal subject believe that Arthur, the once and future king, is in fact going to come back from the dead and save your country from the unremitting folly of its politics over the last few years?
No, he's going to come back and then he's going to pass rigid legislation saying that you all get chucked out of your houses because royals are twats. Thank you for listening to this show and indulging our overweening nostalgia. If you would like to support the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/5G4D. And we both wish you a very Merry Christmas.